No other comments having been submitted, then we will turn it over to Dr. Ouellette for the COVID-19 operational update.
Absolutely. So, we have a couple things that are going on related to COVID-19. Obviously, the school year's coming to an end, instructionally coming to an end, and so we are working through that and gearing up for summer school, which is scheduled to start July 6th. We have had multiple meetings with the St. Croix County public health officials, and reason being, for multiple reasons. Last Monday, we started, I put together a countywide superintendent group, and then any members from each of the school districts teams that they want to include on that to talk to county health about, how we reopen and just different things that we have going on. I think it's a challenge, and I think, I talked to Sue about this a little bit on Friday. I think it was Friday, maybe it was Thursday. I can't remember, Sue, when we talked, but one of the big themes right now is inconsistent information and trying to plan and not get a whole lot of certainties and different things going on. And so, that's one of our biggest challenges that we have going on right now. We will continue to try to meet with them. It was interesting because we were under the impression after the meeting on Monday last week that they would not be doing contact tracing as it relates to kids that get COVID-19. That's what we were told. And I felt pretty good about the fact that that's what we were told, because today in the meeting, the superintendent from New Richmond said, I just want to clarify what we heard you say last week, which was you're not going to contact trace for kids that get COVID-19. And then public health responded, no, I'm sorry, that's not what I said. That's not what I meant. And so we did get clarity that they will still be doing contact tracing if they have the ability to do so. One of the things that we're consistently hearing is that their capacity is really, they're struggling with their capacity as far as to do a lot of different things right now at the county level. One of the messages that we continue to carry with us to them is almost all of our guidance that we're getting from whether it be the CDC, DPI, DHS, all say you need to, contact your local public health official and work through them and as to what they find is okay and appropriate. And so that creates some, real challenges. I don't think they were quite ready to have those levels of discussions. And so I think it's becoming pretty obvious, and at any point, anybody from my team can jump in, but it's becoming, painfully obvious that any and all decisions related to this situation and how we're going to operate schools are going to basically be made between the board and the administration for each school district. And that we're not going to, they basically said they do not want to be making those decisions. Several superintendents asked about sending plans to them for them to review. I think Tracy sent a plan related to our school age care. Aaron, I believe, was sending a plan related to our ESY. And the response we're getting is we don't want to approve those plans. So it's kind of one of those things where they're going to kind of say, here's what we think is the guidance, but they're not necessarily going to come and sign off on anything that we're doing. And so that kind of puts the ball in the court of the board to finalize those decisions based on recommendations that we're giving you. So those are some of the challenges that we have. We're continuing to push, wanting more information. We have been told the DPI is supposedly going to be coming out with some additional guidance, more than what they brought out at this point as it relates to opening school and summer school and things like that. We just don't know when that's going to come out. And so, we're putting together work teams as it relates to the different areas, whether it be school age care or school nursing or special education services or summer school or instruction or any of the different components, or cleaning, for example, transportation. And so though we're going to be talking about next week in our district-wide admin meeting about what that looks like, so that we don't have all 39 people that are on the leadership team on a Zoom meeting talking about transportation, and then all 39 people in the Zoom meeting talking about food service, and then all 30, so what we're going to really try to do is break it into smaller work groups, and then, kind of bring these plans back, to the whole group as to what the plan is, and as we work through those different components. And so, we're getting there slow but sure. One of the other things that's happened, and I think Dave talked about it and Sandy talked about it last week, but if you have a child that was registered for summer school, and I have children that are registered for summer school, so I'm getting to experience it firsthand as a parent, the email went out asking, are you still planning on doing summer school, even though we had to change the date? If not, why not? Is it a logistic thing, like all of a sudden, hey, we have a conflict with the date, or is it you're not comfortable sending your kid? Dave, I don't know if you have any preliminary results that you can share at this point.
Yeah, you bet. We're tracking right about 75% of the folks who have registered are interested in continuing with their plan. Of the 25% that are selecting not to continue, about 60% are due to some concerns about COVID, which is obviously understandable. And that really remains consistent. We're at just over 55% reporting right now. Now we're going to have to do some reaching out of individuals who haven't reported yet, because this is more than just a survey. It's actually part of our registration process as well. We're not just getting this information so we can make programmatic decisions. We also need to know exactly who will be there. So we'll be reaching out individually to all those folks that have not yet responded.
So one of the things, that kind of tells us, and it's about what we were thinking. We were thinking that, about 80% of our kids, we would anticipate at least 80% of our kids back in the fall. Should we be able to open our doors in the fall face to face? And this is telling us it's probably close to that, because 40% of the people that aren't going to come are saying they probably would come. It's just logistically they can't make it work. But we are having some parents that are choosing that they have concerns about it, and that's totally understandable. And so, with the summer school portion, we will not be doing a distance learning portion for that, but we will, I know Dave and Sandy have been working hard on trying to put into place and a work team put into place what it looks like in the fall for those people that choose either A, can't come back because maybe they're medically fragile, or they have some other underlying conditions, or B, parents don't feel comfortable with their kids sending their kids back, and so how do we deliver and make sure that they are still getting an education even though they're not face to face, and we do it in a way that doesn't kill our teachers. Our teachers are cranking to deliver virtual. They're obviously cranking when we deliver face to face. So asking them to do double for an extended period of time, I think is going to be really, really hard. And so trying to look at what are reasonable solutions for everybody involved as we work through those different components. The other piece related to COVID that we've been working on, hopefully you had an opportunity to view the graduation video that was put together, the virtual graduation video. Ryan Delacroix, who is on this meeting, but he doesn't, he closed his video on this. Ryan was the lead on this thing, and he did a phenomenal job on this video. We've heard a lot of positive feedback. Obviously, nothing's going to be quite like having a regular graduation, but he did a great job. All the high school team that was involved in putting the video together, did a great job. So we're really, really, really happy with the way that turned out. And so if you haven't had an opportunity to view that, the links that we sent you in the email, that Tracy sent you in the email, those are still live. You'd be able to go back and look at it. I will say, as I told my wife, I had the uncanny ability of growing my hair longer and yet looking balder. And so it was prior to me being able to get a haircut. So there is quite the nice comb over while I was giving my speech, unlike Jamie with his full head of hair, giving his. And then I will say today, as we got ready for these presentations, Jim DeLune, his concerns fell on deaf ears. He wanted to be able to wear a hat tonight because he hasn't had a haircut. And I felt zero sympathy for him with his thick, dark black hair. So I told him there will be no hats. You will wear your thick hair. For some of us that are follically challenged, as we work through that. But
looking good, Jim. Just keep rocking it.
So the graduation piece. So we're having the kind of the face-to-face. I guess it's not necessarily technically a graduation. What the high school is kind of put together proposing is an appointment-based system where we basically kids are they sign up for an hour time slot, or we assign them to an hour time slot. And at any point, Moe, correct me if I'm botching any of this. So it's basically 30 kids per hour, 30 families per hour could do this. And what we would do is we'd set up the full stage like we normally would have set up a graduation, everything set up. They would come through. We would have them spaced out in the building, making sure that we're having our social distancing. They could bring as many family members as they want, but they have to stay clustered together and away from everybody else. They would come through. We would have photographers there. They would get a picture of a board member, if we have board members who want to come, handing a diploma cover to the graduate like we typically do at graduation. The other members that are typically on stage graduation will be up there. There'll be an opportunity for pictures. Their name obviously gets read. And then there'll be another area set up with a really nice backdrop and things where there'll be an opportunity for Life Touch. We'll take a family picture with the graduate if they would like that. And all those things, then they'll have access to all of that for free. We'll send it out, and then they'll take their diploma cover, drop it on a table. We'll have it cleaned, scrubbed off with the disinfectant that we've been approved to use, and we'll have about 20 or 30 of these diploma covers. So it's not like we're waiting for the next, going back and forth. But and then the next person will come across, and if you think about the numbers, if we had 300 of the 440 people take advantage of that, it'd take about 10 hours to get everybody through. If all 440 take advantage of it, which I can't imagine they would, we would have closer to 15 hours of time. And so once we're kind of finalizing some things with public health, again, they won't approve the plan. They'll just kind of maybe give us some feedback on it. Then what the high school team is planning on doing is laying it all out for parents. This is what our plan is. This is what we're going to do, so that you get the option to have the pictures like you normally would have at a graduation ceremony. And then please let us know. It's almost like an RSVP, kind of like Dave talked about with summer school. Let us know if you're planning on attending. And if so, then we can get a count, and then we can start to put together how many hours we're going to need, based on the number of kids attending. And so it just, we're at a point where we just don't think it's going to work to try to get 250 people in the gym at this point. Not saying that we won't eventually get to that point. It doesn't look like, we want to be the first guinea pigs on that process. And so this at least gives them the opportunity for the pictures that typically you would get with graduation, but not necessarily the level of exposure with bringing a lot of people in. And so any questions about any of that or any of the COVID stuff up to this point? Go ahead, Heather.
So Nick, I'm just curious. I mean, after seeing on Facebook the way that families really did use Saturday's evening as a graduation celebration. I mean, I saw pictures of kids in caps and gowns and families gathered. I mean, do we have a sense that families really still want this? I mean, you guys did such a good job with that ceremony that I was sitting there thinking, what the heck are we going to do in July? Like it felt like we did it. So what are you hearing from kids and families? Are we hearing?
Well, and I think that's why we'll want to RSVP and find out. I mean, we might only have 100 people that want to take advantage of this out of 440. But if it is 100 that want to take advantage of getting these pictures like they would normally get with the stage set up, then we want to honor that for those folks. But I think because the virtual graduation was done so well, I think we're probably not going to have as many people wanting to take advantage of it as maybe a month ago prior to them everybody seeing what was going on. But right now, I don't know, Mogi, have you heard much or any feedback at all of people still wanting or not wanting?
I haven't heard anything one way or another, Nick, at this point.
Okay. So, and once we know, we'll kind of let you guys know, but we would anticipate that communication going out by the end of this week, and then we'll have a pretty good idea on what that's gonna look like. And then the last piece I want to touch on COVID-related updates, and we're going to probably hit it a little bit more extensively on the 29th meeting, because Tim will be digging into the budget, and we'll be talking about the budget update of what we're thinking. But I had a good conversation with a congressman that happens to be on Joint Finance Committee, and they had just had a meeting. Really, there's not going to be anything to report budget-wise until after probably August 1, because by pushing back the state tax filing deadline to July 15th instead of April 15th, what they don't know is just quite how deep is the pain, I guess, or lack of funds, because you could have a lot of people that have to pay in and they're saying, well, if I have to pay in, I might as well wait till the last possible moment to pay in versus why pay ahead early. And so they are looking at, one of the things that he said, and of course you always have to couch this with, based on the best information I have right now is, worst case scenario, we would be looking at a freeze, compared to what we've gotten in the past, so basically all the revenue that we got from the state this year would be what we would get the next year. Best case scenario, we would get what they promised us in the second year of the biennium budget. And so, and again, those are with the caveat that, okay, all of a sudden it could look way worse than they thought, but a lot of things are pointing based on some of the sales tax data that they're getting in, that's preliminarily and things like that, he didn't say we're in a V-shaped recovery or anything like that, but thinks there's a strong possibility that the recovery could come a little bit quicker than maybe we all anticipated, which would help then obviously tax revenues and things along those lines. And I think one of the big supporting pieces of evidence came, I think, on Friday when unemployment, I think they were anticipating going to almost 20% up from like 14.3, and it actually dropped from 14.3 down to 13.7%. And so the country actually added 2.5 million jobs over the month of May. And so, and not added, but probably brought people back to work, type of thing. And so that's a good sign. And obviously they were looking at that as a good sign. So we'll have probably a better look in August when the Revenue Estimating Committee comes out with their new projections. One of the things he did say is he didn't think that there would be any type of budget repair bill prior to the November election. So if they do have to do a budget repair bill where they have to come in and they actually have to cut us $50 per pupil, $100 per pupil, whatever it is, that's probably not going to happen until this winter or even spring. And that makes it kind of tough when you start getting cut revenues when, you're already 6, 7, 8 months into the fiscal year. However, as we've talked about previously, we're going to finish this current fiscal year in a very healthy situation. So we are in a very, very good position, I think, to weather this. And again, Tim will go more in depth with it, at the 29th board work session as to how we're sitting. But legislatively, it's something we're keeping an eye on. I did ask him about the legislation as it relates to immunity and employers. And there has been some conversation about trying to extend the employer immunity piece as far as it relates to, people being sick and things along those lines. He really thought that they were hearing at the federal level. That's something that they think they're going to try to tackle at the federal level. I did ask about federal backfill, like another round of stimulus. What is he hearing from our federal delegation? And what he's hearing is that right now there's very little interest in a federal backfill of lost revenues for the state. And the federal government has kind of taken this approach, or at least probably some of the members are taking the approach of, okay, we're starting to open things back up. The majority of states are starting to open back up. Let's see just how bad the problem is before we start just throwing a ton of money that way and taking on additional debt. And so if there is federal backfilling of lost state revenues, we may not know what that looks like until closer to, October or even November. So we're not, I don't think at this point we're looking to, count on that. And they weren't necessarily looking to count on that either. So, but he did say one silver lining, what I thought was interesting is similar to what we have is, we have a $1.2 million to the good claims versus premium on our insurance because there's been so many fewer people going to the doctor. So we're actually paying out quite a bit less than what we thought we would. They're seeing that exact same thing with Medicare or Medicaid and things like that. And so some of the deficits they thought they were going to have to run or some of the big chunks they thought they were going to have to pay out, they're actually going to finish a little better than they thought, which will help offset some of the losses and things along those lines. So that's kind of to be, stay tuned. And as I hear more, I'll share it with you, but I wouldn't hold your breath that they're going to do too much prior to the fact that it's an election year. And I think they're going to take a more wait and see approach until after November 4th, I think it is, or November 2nd, whatever that date is. So Any questions about COVID update or COVID report?
Yeah,
Go ahead,
Sue
Sue.
here. Is there any, and this would be for Tim Erickson too, is there any precedent in our state for waiting till spring and then say, oh, we're going to cut each kid $100? Have we ever, has that been part of our history ever?
I've never seen it.
The only cross-board cuts we saw was post-Act 10, or, they did cut across the board 10%, but it was going into the next fiscal year. It wasn't for the fiscal year that we're in. Is that how-
Right, yeah, they did. Yeah, it's very rare. I mean, sometimes the budget doesn't get decided or the bills don't get decided until later. But normally we've got to know that towards the end of October. So for tax bills and that type of thing. So it would be, but I mean, it would be highly unlikely that would happen, but it would be something more forward in the next biennium, I would think.
Any other board member questions, comments? I have one, Nick. You were going through the various aspects and talking about surveys, which I think are good. I know it's a vital part of getting the exact numbers for summer school. And I think finding out, how many are going to do this picture taking ceremony, I guess if you want to call it, as the last part to the commencement. So along the lines of those surveys, I'm wondering, is there any plans to do a survey to get some gauge of where parents might be in sending their kids back to school in the fall for in-person learning? And I ask that with another question, and that is, in lots of areas, we're seeing that people are getting used to using Zoom and incorporating that part. I use Rotary as an example. Our leadership at the Hudson Daybreak Rotary Club has already decided that even when we go back to in-person meetings, that Zoom is going to be a part of, we're going to have these hybrid meetings. Our board last week seemed to indicate that for the foreseeable future, they would like to see Zoom continue even if we open up the ASC for in-person board meetings. So along those lines, I know you said that it's been taxing for teachers, and I think our teachers have done an outstanding job. Administration's been great trying to switch on the fly back in March, but we don't have to worry about switch on the fly anymore. Now this is the planning stage. And if the reality is that there's going to be 20 to 30% families that are going to be hesitant to send their kids back, and now that we're not going to get any guidance from Department of Health, no guidance from the governor, no guidance from the Department of Public Instruction, and we're going to be on this, should we be planning for a hybrid approach where if teachers teach for 6 or 7 periods out of the day, that expect 4 of those to be in person and 2 or 3 of those, and who knows, maybe there's teachers who prefer the virtual method, wouldn't mind if their whole class load was virtual. But so that's my long-winded question, and is, will we be planning on some type of hybrid approach? And 2, will we get parent feedback so we can help plan for that?
So the short answer is yes, we are planning for that, and Dave can kind of elaborate on what that's going to look like, or what we're starting to have conversations about. And as far as the parent feedback, yes, it's a matter of trying to figure out what's the best avenue to get that feedback. I know that School Perceptions just sent out a thing today that they have a survey that you can use to see what parent feelings are on this, and it's something we could look at using. Dave, I don't know if has your team made any real headway yet. I know we're just starting those conversations.
Yeah, we moved quickly to take a look at a delivery system that would allow us to do exactly what you're saying, and that is deliver both online and in person. Now, the way we're planning right now, we don't have the hybrid plan. What we have are essentially the 2 extremes plan. So we know if we needed to open up and we were on site, we know what we would do. If we were fully virtual, we know what we would do. Now it's the planning of the hybrid, which actually is the more complicated part. But we're embracing Google Classroom as our learning management system. There have been some significant upgrades to Google Classroom that will allow us to more efficiently and effectively deliver instruction in a meaningful way. All of our teachers in these last 2 weeks have gone through some initial training And interestingly, that training was virtual, obviously, and asynchronous. So we're looking at a lot of different models that will help us get there. We'll continue that support throughout the summer. We'll have Summer Academy during our big PD session, getting teachers up to speed. But we're essentially preparing for both and then see where we meet.
Thank you. Thank you for that update. Heather.
Well, I think, not to state the obvious, but I think, I mean, part of what's exciting about this is thinking that we could end up with a model that would mean that when kids are sick and can't come to school, not sick with COVID sick, but just sick in general sick, that they could still be participating in learning from home. I mean, we were talking about this with my work team today. And so I think, while yes, we're solving the problem right now for COVID, I think the more that we can figure out that flexible approach to instruction where kids can engage and learn remotely, that's going to be a tool that's going to be useful moving forward for a whole lot more than just, you know, delivering instruction during this recovery, if you will, this recovery period. So I'm glad that we're looking at it with that longer term timeline in mind, because I think that there are some benefits to this, despite the current ick of the situation, that really will benefit kids down the road if we can get really good and comfortable with this.
Any other comments or questions by board members on the COVID-19 situation? We're getting reports at every meeting that we have. So thank you, Nick and team, for that update. Under my report, we have this board development survey, which we it's version 2.0 for the 2020 year. And Tim Miner, I don't know, or Nick, if either one of you want to comment, have we had all 7 board members chime in yet?
No, we have not.
So how many are we out of 7 so far?
5.
5, all right. So we have 2 more. Hopefully, those that have taken it now, again, remember that they took it in the last 10 days and they don't take it a second time before the next meeting. And the 2 that haven't had an opportunity to do that in the last 10 days, take the opportunity to do that now. We actually have 3 weeks till our next meeting, which is June 29th, but that's the hope, is that we have all 7 responses and that we get them in advance so that we can forward the results with comments to board members, and they'll have hopefully an opportunity. So the sooner that our 2 thus far non-participating board members can get their voice heard, then the sooner that they get that done, the sooner we can share that. I don't know if there's any questions about that. I'm not seeing any hands up, so hopefully we'll have those results soon. Now, I guess we'll turn it over to the reports. And Nick, do you want to introduce each of these reports, or we just turn it over to Mogi for the Hudson High School? You're on mute.
What we'll do is we'll just follow along the agenda, as the reports are. And so the first one up is Mogi.
All right. Well, hey, good to see everybody, even though it's on Zoom. Haven't seen a lot of you in a long time, so good to see you. Nick said that I had 3 to 5 minutes for my presentation. Well, anytime you put 1,850 teenagers together with 150 adults trying to move them in the right direction, I had a lot of material to choose from, folks. Okay. So I sent out a note to my teachers and asked them for their highlights and successes. And I did share that with you. And I know you have that document there. So I'm not going to go through that, but if you do have any questions or concerns after I'm finished, I can certainly answer any of those for you. I just wanted to say that it just doesn't seem like that long ago that I was meeting with all of you to say hello at the ASC late summer. It's much different now as I say goodbye from my basement office where I've spent the better part of the last 3 months. This year for me was kind of a blur. Just getting going, meeting new staff, students, developing relationships, attending games and events. I really started feeling comfortable, I would say, right around the mid-year, and things were really going pretty smoothly until March, of course. I just want to let everybody know how much I've appreciated the opportunity to work with the great team Dr. Ouellette has assembled with his cabinet. and also the other principals throughout the district, and then finally my own team. I never worked in a big district like this before, so I finally had an opportunity to work with my own team. And the team at the high school and the administrators throughout the district are highly professional and first-rate people. Working with the staff, the students, the parents, and the community was definitely a pleasure for me. Hudson is a first-class district in all areas. The students and parents are highly motivated, and the community has high expectations, and I believe the district delivers. I'll be honest with you, I'd be lying if I told you that I didn't wish that I was younger and could give more years to the district. I'm jealous of what Mike Ballard is walking into, and I wish him nothing but the best. If there's anything I can do to help him, I will certainly be willing to do that. I'll be meeting with him probably this week or next week to kind of go over some just general things as far as what's going on around the school. Maybe if I can help him avoid some pitfalls, I would certainly do that. I know that my hire wasn't typical for you folks, and you kind of had to take Nick's word for it. So I hope that I always carried myself in a professional manner and didn't do anything to distract from the district. I want to thank you for the opportunity to work in your district, and I'll look back fondly on the memories of my year in Hudson. Any questions?
Mr. President?
Sue?
Yeah, okay, I think I'm on. Thank you, Mogi, for coming in and taking over the reins, you know, during a year that had a lot of uncomfortable moments. And I just was wondering if we would have any further opportunity, and I know I'm jumping in, not my area, but is it typical to have some sort of HR, what do you call it, I forget what you call it now, when you're leaving and you have a closing.
Exit interview?
Thank you, the language. A closing interview. Is there anything planned for that so that we can have a few jewels of wisdom from you and insights?
Hold on. No, I'm not muted. Yeah, absolutely. We're planning on doing that. I think I talked to Mogi. I talked to you about that last week, didn't I?
Yes.
So, yep. We're planning on doing that and going from there. I do want to say, you know, we have been pretty fortunate. Mogi's done an outstanding job for us at the high school. You know, he has stepped up. You know, we have a great principal team. We have a great cabinet team. We have a great Hudson lead team. And so, you know, it's a lot of fun when we all do get an opportunity to get together. And Mogi stepped right into that team and became part of the team. And one of the things I think they value the most out of what he's done is he didn't come in and just throw his feet up on the desk and say, okay, I'm here holding a place for 365 days. He came in, he got vested in the kids, the community. He attended events. He got involved with staff and really did a great job for us. We're very fortunate to have had him for the time that we did, and wish him nothing but the best. And you never know, we might need another interim on occasion. You know, he can come on back to Hudson. He may say absolutely not. So, but no, thank you very much, Mogi. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for your report. Thank you for your service. And not to put you on the spot or to turn this into that exit interview, but of all the things, because as you were giving your report, you were giving me goosebumps and chills, saying such good things about our school district and specifically the high school. What is the one thing that you that exceeded your expectations the most, if you can come up with one on the spot like this?
You know, when I got into this, I did a little background, some checking on it and stuff, but the high expectations of the district, the number of AP courses the kids have an opportunity to take, the number of dual credits the kids have an opportunity to take, just the high expectation of educational excellence. It was stunning, and the kids delivered. I mean, you've got just a tremendous group of young individuals there that are striving for greatness, and I think they're going to make it because they just push themselves. It's wonderful. I had a mom get back to me early this week about her daughter. So we cleaned out all the lockers, and the mom wanted me to know that she had purchased a special book for her daughter to help her work with her in algebra, and it was her own textbook that they bought on their own. And I'm thinking to myself, holy cow, some kids don't even know where their own math book is. And this girl's and her parents are working to get her even more help. So they understand how important it is that you get from one level to the next level, to the next level, to the next level to get where you want to go. And, the parents have the wherewithal to help those kids, and the kids seem motivated to want to get there as well.
Well, excellent. Thank you again for your report and for your comments and for your service. Next up on report 2 out of 10 is Jim DeLune with middle school, I guess.
All right. Well, seeing as Mogi's ending his tenure here, he got a little bit of a reprieve from the superintendent, but I was told I was supposed to fill 25, 30 minutes. So I'll do my best. No, first of all, I agree with Mogi. It's great to see everybody. I wish we were in person. It seems like it has been far too long since I have seen many of you. 1920, I think there's a lot of different adjectives we could use to describe it, but it was certainly different. I'll start with our SMART goal. We were really excited this year. Our SMART goal, we were going to tackle basically the whole of the ELA exam on the Wisconsin Forward. Over the course of the past few years, we have been looking strategically at different segments of that ELA exam. And we had 4 targets that we were shooting for. 2 were school-based curriculum measures that we kind of had control of, and 2 were standards-based assessments that we didn't. So the 2 that we did have control of, our first target was our Rigor literacy exam. We wanted 75% of our students to be able to demonstrate proficiency. We did like the trajectory we were on after our first 2 assessments, actually 3, because we have a baseline assessment and then 2 formative checks. The last 2 check-ins that we did remotely. And so we're not really confident in how accurate that data is, but we as a team, we wanted to make sure that we gave those assessments, we got that information, and at least we had it as a marker to compare to last year and then next year. So we did not hit our 75%, but again, we were on pace in all 3 grade levels to hit that mark. Yeah, I believe if we would have stayed in brick and mortar education. Our second target was that 100% of our students would demonstrate proficiency on question 10, which is the writing prompt of our Rigor literacy assessment. We have really come a long way in some systemic improvements here at Hudson Middle School over the last few years. We use now a standard writing rubric across all of our courses, all grade levels, regardless of discipline. So whether they're writing in health or journaling in Phi-Ed, whether they are doing some art history in art, or they are in language arts, we have a common rubric and a common language across 6th grade, across 7th grade, and across 8th grade to really help build that institutional approach to teaching writing. So again, we gave our last 2 assessments remotely. We came in a little shy of our goal. 75.6% of our students overall were proficient on that question 10, but again, I do believe that we would have had better scores if we would have had the kids in our presence for the last 3 months of the school year. The last 2 targets were based on standards-based assessments that we just didn't have access to. And then for the rest of my time, I want to talk about some of our highlights and successes. I'm finishing up my 16th year at Hudson Middle School, and again, the strength of this building are the kids. and the people. I want to start with some of the highlights that I shared with you. Our staff is just outstanding. We had several of our staff members, Mary Beth Elliott, Kat Swanson, Chris De Leon, Katie Mitchell. They actually went across the border and presented at the Middle School Association's conference for Minnesota on our PLC work and some of the things that we have done to really systemically build our learning communities here at Hudson Middle School. And that kind of also reflects back to, if you take a look at number 2 on the list, this was our first year of implementing what we call PLC Notebooks. These are digital notebooks that standardize the work we do in PLCs. And so we have our PLC roadmap, which was developed and designed by a group of educators here at Hudson Middle School that spent a year doing a deep dive into the PLC process. With that roadmap, then we do our self-assessment. And so each PLC every year does a self-assessment. They set goals on what improvements they want to make throughout the course of the year. And then we move into the curricular areas where we have our curricular calendar, our priority standards are listed by trimester. We have our assessment calendar and our data discussion protocols. These are all pieces that will help us continue to be a school that is focused on continuous improvement. They are systemic and, I should not say 3 years in, that's not fair. But we are getting better and better every year. And there are some things now cemented. There are some things that we do because they're collaborative in nature. They use student learning results and they drive instructional choices. And for me, as someone who 1300 Carmichael Road is one of the greatest loves of my life, that matters because that's lasting. And it's all due to the efforts of our staff. So very, very proud of that. Our tech ed program traveled to Baltimore and we got them back just in time before the airport closed down due to COVID-19. But they were out there representing the state of Wisconsin as the state of Wisconsin's middle school technology education program of the year. And we're back at it again. This year we had a group of 4 6th grade students place second in the state of Wisconsin in the eCyber Mission STEM competition. So again, that department is just continuing to really rock it. Some of the other pieces I want to highlight, because I know I'm already off the clock. I can sense someone's watch ticking. If you take a look at number 6, this is our future at Hudson Middle School. The work that we have done this year to start to lay the groundwork for restorative practices, to start to cast an umbrella over multi-tiered systems of support, over response to intervention, over trauma-informed practices, over mindfulness, over equity, over inclusive practices. We continue to build institutional depth of knowledge that will allow us to become a place where every child that crosses the threshold has equal opportunity at success. And again, that's being built on the backs of our student services, our PLC leads, just incredible educators doing some really, really strong work in the right way. So though this year did not end the way any of us wanted it to, as the principal of Hudson Middle School, I don't know if I could have scripted a better year for us to set us up for the continued evolution that we need to take to be the building that this community deserves. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Any questions from board members about the middle school report? Jim, really appreciate, okay, we got Sue, go ahead.
Well, I was just so appreciating your passion, and I think, Jim, you have an amazing handle on the relationship of student and staff and leadership, and I like that you are so complimentary to the achievement of all those involved. So that's coming through tonight. Thank you.
Yes, and I really appreciated the thorough report. You've got, 30-some paragraphs and, a lot of news, and so it's a tough job to condense it down, but that's kind of what we ask for is a written report that's pretty comprehensive, but hitting the highlights, great job. And thank you again for your work. And I like the systemic approach and that looking at year-over-year improvement, so constantly. I don't see any other hands up, so we will move along to teaching and learning. Wait, Nick?
Jamie, just one quick question, I guess, Jim.
Heather.
Yeah, for Jim, but probably for everyone. So how, our tracking of these metrics was interrupted by the disruption of our instruction. So when we think about coming back next fall, are we do we start with a new baseline? How so much of the work that we do looks at that, beginning, middle, end of year, transfer to the next grade. So what'll have to be different about how we look at some of those metrics or how we use them moving forward?
Well, I'm going to speak from my vantage point, and I hope I'm hitting the same notes that the rest of my colleagues will. But right now, Heather, I'm not going to focus on the big metrics. Our folks have been spending the last 2 weeks preparing to create the right opportunities to really figure out where our kids are at based on our priority standards that we've identified. And so we know instructionally where they're at and what we need to do. And then, all strong test results are built on the backs of strong curricular work. And so we're going to really dive into how do we get pre-assessment data and how do we figure out diagnostically where our kids are at when they walk back into our door so we can meet them at their level currently while yet not taking our eye off of the bar that we've set, that we have decided we're not going to move this bar. The bar is the bar. But if we get them at a different level coming in, we got to make sure we understand where that level is so we can create the right opportunities for them to grow.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have anything for Jim? I'm flipping back and forth between screens. I see no hands, so I guess turn it over to Dave and Sandy on teaching and learning.
Thank you, Jamie. Yep, I'll start off and really going to be repeating some of the things you've heard already. It has been a tale of 2 years. Everything that happened preschool closure was one set of experiences, and then an entirely new set of experience post-closure. And I'm immensely proud of everyone in the system. The teachers, specialists, support staff, our teaching and learning team, major kudos to them for everything they've done to support our families and our kids through this process. It's been really remarkable. So Mogi started out, and I think everyone could see Mogi's a class act all through and through, and has been amazing from the very beginning. And I want to highlight another class act, and that is Sandy. So this will be Sandy's last year-end report. I'm honored to have worked with Sandy for as long as I have. She's a compassionate and principled leader that is always, literally always respectful, and has done an amazing job of leading so many of the things that you're going to hear about today. I'm going to turn it over to her in just a second, but just know that just as Mogi walked in, he could have said, okay, interim principal, school closure. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to take a step back. Sandy could have done the same thing. She made the choice to retire before this all happened. I doubt she's regretting it right now, but she never slowed down, absolutely dove in and made sure that we were set to go and didn't miss a beat. I literally am not totally sure what I'm going to do without her on the team right now. So big shoes to fill. I'm excited about how she set us up for success, but just an absolute honor to have worked with her for as long as I have. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Sandy for a few of the items, and I'll come back in a couple of minutes.
All right. Thank you, Dave. When it comes to curriculum and instruction, embracing and supporting continuous improvement for student learning is at the heart of teaching and learning. To improve the knowledge and skills of our teaching and learning team, we conducted a book study on the core of our improvement process, Understanding by Design, or Backward Design. We reviewed and adjusted the roles and responsibilities of the T&L team to better meet the needs of the curriculum improvement process and to support the staff in their PLCs. T&L continued to provide professional learning on guided reading instruction and expanded guided reading libraries at the elementary level. One of our high points at the elementary level was the Fontes and Pinnell pilot. We're pleased to share that a highly successful pilot of the Fontes and Pinnell literacy program took place at Willow River Elementary this year. A huge kudos to the entire Willow River staff, Kim Osterhughes principal, Amy Wise, curriculum specialist, and Chloe Brine, our T&L coach. This spring, a unanimous decision was made to implement Fontes and Pinnell classroom in the other 5 buildings starting in fall 2020. And then when it comes to our assessment, in the area of assessment, we continued our focus on the development and administration of interim assessments, which you've heard about this evening, at all levels to provide important check-ins throughout the year to guide instruction. And as you know, other than our March ACT, our spring assessments, as well as our large-scale MAP assessments, were canceled due to the school closures.
I'm going to take over from there with a few of our items here. Our dual credit program. So very proud to have established our partnership with UWRF. We're going to begin offering our dual credit courses next year where students can earn high school and UWRF college credits concurrently. It's a really great opportunity for our kids. We have 8 teachers who are already certified to teach dual credit courses, and we'll be offering 2 calculus courses for dual credit next year and look to continually expand that program in the future. The next item we wanted to highlight was our Rigor Teamwork Inclusion Initiative, sometimes referred to as RTI Reimagined. Our Rigor Teamwork Inclusion Initiative has really blossomed into a meaningful professional learning and program improvement framework. Although the work was cut short this year, we're able to refine our changes and establish our annual and long-term goals in the area of co-teaching, multi-level systems of support, universal design for learning. My favorite part about this work is this team and the initiative have evolved into the primary focus of our collaborative work between teaching and learning and student services. It is probably the most rewarding work that I'm involved in because it is so student-centered, and the passion that the teachers have that are working on in this team is remarkable. And family engagement, it's been quite a year for family engagement. As you know, family engagement is always important. So we formed a district-wide committee to focus specifically on ways to improve family engagement at all levels. We conducted a book study, and then we developed a working definition of family engagement that we can use in a variety of ways. The next steps for this team will be to offer some recommendations for our leadership teams regarding some expectations related to communication with families and family engagement. Without strong family engagement, we would not have had such a successful transition into these uncharted waters. But our teachers really stepped up and embraced the importance of family engagement. On a totally different note, educator effectiveness. So along with all the typical things that go into educator effectiveness and the typical professional development, calibration that takes place every year, we had to modify educator effectiveness and the entire process to accommodate the changes related to school closure. Several conversations took place. In fact, every certified staff member had a conversation with their evaluator to collaboratively decide on how to wrap up the evaluation cycle, making sure that the teacher and specialist voice was part of that process and heard as we made decisions. Hudson virtual school planning and implementation, a remarkable success this year. And I want to take a moment to recognize Sarah Engstrom-Wide, our virtual school coordinator, and our newly formed Hudson Virtual Charter School Governance Board. The members are Stan Sias, Shelley Tugas, Peter Jones, and Melissa Harris. They've all significantly contributed already to our success. This year, we served over 250 students, and looking forward to moving forward and serving even more students as we launch our virtual charter for next year. we talked a little bit about family engagement already, and our Teaching and Learning Advisory Council is an important part of our family engagement strategy. Although our second year was cut short with our TLAC, as we call it, we're able to take steps to expand their role by including them in the feedback loop for all topics related to instruction, assessment, and curriculum. And again, another great example of our renewed focus on family engagement. I'm going to turn it back to Sandy for a second.
And then our next topic is at-home virtual learning. We just felt that it would be remiss for us not to mention the amazing work of our district staff to implement quality virtual instruction over the last 10 weeks. Hudson was a leader in our modification of curriculum instruction and assessment and our communication and support of families, students, and staff. I'm tossing it back to Dave.
All right, so during the closure, I asked all the members of our teaching and learning team to share one thing that they're very proud of. Many of the ideas that they shared are embedded in the highlights that we've already talked about, and they were many. But I included this particular quote from an elementary instructional coach, Paula Blattner, as it really summed up our approach to teaching and learning during the closure. If you'd like, you can take a look. There's a word cloud there. We won't go into it, but that represents all of the things that were shared that the team was proud of. And I think visually it really represents the heart of what we were all about. But if you just take a moment to read that quote, it really speaks to what this was all about in these last couple months. And again, I couldn't be more proud. Thank you.
I would be remiss if I didn't touch on a little bit, with Sandy leaving, retiring this year, and I couldn't echo Dave's sentiments any more than possible, because Sandy has been an unbelievable team member, and it has been really hard. And I stopped in and talked to her, I think it was last week, the week before, and we talked about, boy, this is not exactly how we were planning on being able to bring everybody together, and especially for those people that are leaving, and trying to get some level of celebration. And so we're hoping to do something for our retirees in August maybe, or September, to try to bring everybody in. But I will say all the things that Dave said, and then she's been outstanding help for me when I got here 5 years ago. She's always been steadfast through everything, and just extremely important member of the team. I often wonder, as we head into these summer school things and we look at all these changes, I will go into Dave's office. Hey, you realize Sandy's going to be gone June 30th. And he goes, I know, don't keep reminding me. And she's always been someone that we've been able to count on, and never have to worry about ball getting dropped. And so we're very, very fortunate to have had her work in the district the last 15 years, and for me to get the opportunity to work here for the last 5. So it stinks that we don't have more face-to-face opportunities for this, but we are going to try to plan something for all our retirees once we can kind of get back more face-to-face. But again, just really, really, really going to miss her leadership, and looking forward to Lisa and Ivy and their work. But Sandy has 2 big shoes to fill. I tell people that, Sandy's leaving, we had to replace her position with 2 people. And so it's kind of like Jim reminds me that when he left assistant principal at the middle school, that we had to replace his position with the dean and assistant principal with 2 people. So we get these outstanding people to work for us. We're pretty fortunate to have them. So thank you again, Sandy, and there's no doubt in my mind she will finish strong all the way through the end of June. So
Thank you.
Any board questions on teaching and learning? And yeah, definitely, Sandy, we want to echo that, but I think you still have one more meeting to attend, so we'll get a chance to say our comments. And so I encourage board members to save up for that. All right. Anything else? I'm not seeing any. So, all right, Sue.
Well, just a comment. I'm hearing after Dave's report, I'm hearing overlap, with other reports like the dual, I gotta look at it here, dual credit that Mogi. And also of course, I remember, I think early on, I was asking questions of David, like, do the teachers get to participate in curriculum and teaching? And I'm so delighted that we have the advisory groups, and they're strong, and I know they meet often. And I just think that provides real underlying strength. So thank you for all that you both do and for the report.
Right. All right. Again, thank you, Dave. Thank you, Sandy. Next up, I guess we have Erin with Student Services.
Yep. Hi, everyone. So just a few things to highlight. So in Student Services, takes collaboration with every other department and every school to continue our work on meeting the needs of all students. So a few things to highlight. We were, again, a lucky recipient of the mental health grant. So that allowed us to continue the work around increasing access to mental health therapy, providing professional development for all staff, around identifying students who are in needs of support, and building capacity of staff to address mental health concerns. We're able to build on the work that we did last year. So we were able to move beyond just awareness of mental health issues to really digging into specific strategies around anxiety, depression, and self-regulation. And as we work to welcome students back in the fall, these strategies are going to be very useful and important as we welcome. We were able to host multiple youth mental health first aid trainings with the support of this grant funding, as well as partnership with United Way. In addition, the district hosted youth mental health first aid trainings for community members and parents as well. So kind of expanding the work beyond just the school into the community, which is really exciting. To help support our work around mental health, the department has been analyzing and utilizing our youth risk behavior survey data, specifically our disaggregated subgroup data, to better understand the student experience within our district from a variety of different perspectives. Trauma Sensitive Schools project continued at multiple levels. Middle school is in, I don't know, I think year 5 of this. Elementary is in year 2, and that's being led by our talented team of counselors working to help staff understand trauma and implement best practices. This has also led in comes in our ability to adapt our disciplinary practices. Jim spoke about this a little bit in terms of restorative practices, but really shifting disciplinary practices to focus on support and teaching lagging skills so that students can be more successful. In terms of special education, the district provided special education services to over 700 students aged 3 to 21. I couldn't be prouder of the work done by our special education staff during our current situation. We were able to adapt quickly to provide direct services within days of the school closure, which is no small feat. And so our staff really rose to the challenge. So it's certainly been a challenging time for our most vulnerable learners, but it has led to deeper our students' needs, and also that the family relationship has been really important and really highlighted that importance of family engagement. Dave talked a little bit about our Rigor teamwork inclusion and the collaboration with learning services. It is a really exciting group to be a part of, and engaging in really deep professional conversations about what works well here, where do we continue to have gaps, and exploring strategies to better meet the needs of all of our students by increasing access to high quality instruction for everyone. Lastly, just talking about increasing family and community engagement. So a couple of things to highlight here. We continued our special education parent advisory in partnership with Wisconsin Special Education Parent Engagement Initiative project. This group really allowed us to gain different perspectives within our special education programming and families. The ultimate purpose of this group is to further engage families outside of the community. And so the big task this group took on this year was to host the annual Keys to Success conference That was planned for April. So we're shifting that to the fall, but just a full day Saturday conference for caregivers, families, and educators with breakout sessions on variety of different topics in special education and mental health. So looking forward to sharing more about that in the fall. And then our mental health advisory council that is made up of staff, students, parents, community members, and community mental health providers. This was a highly engaged group. So this is our second year. We started this last year with the mental health grant and continued it outside of grant funding this year. This group worked to develop a community engagement night called Hope and Healing, really in light of the difficult losses at our high school this year. And although we weren't able to host this event in March, this group continues to remain dedicated to spreading mental health awareness and engaging the community. So hopefully that's something we can bring back in the fall and just have bigger community conversations about what our students need and what our families and community need around mental health. Questions about that?
All right.
Mr. President.
Yes, Rob.
So Aaron, just a quick question on the advisory councils that you have, mental health, SPED.
Mm-hmm.
Did anything significant come out of those interactions? Anything, not necessarily policy changing, but how you interact with kids? Anything significant come out of those discussions?
In terms of our special education group, we had a lot of conversations about what families need at different levels of continuum of service. So what a family, it was really interesting to watch families who have a senior in high school who receives special education services talk to a parent of a 3-year-old who's receiving special education services, and just gaining some insight on what questions they're asking and how can we provide front load that more in a comfortable way in those different settings. Does that make sense? So really looking at that continuum from early childhood all the way through transition, and gaining insight from families who've been all the way through that system.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
Amy?
Yeah.
It's Heather. You know, one of the things that strikes me listening, especially to teaching and learning and student services, but in general to the reports, is how many different committees, both internal and engaging the community externally, we are supporting throughout our district. And I think, I mean, you know, we as a board member, I hear about them kind of onesie, twosie throughout the year, and possibly sometimes in my mind even kind of they get globbed together. But I think it would be really interesting and helpful and impressive to see how many, I mean, to see them all in one place. You know, all of the opportunities that if community members are saying, I'd really love to get engaged with the school. Hey, here are all the committees we have. And not that you can join any one of them at any time, but to be aware of what those opportunities are. And I think all of the committees we have internally are such testament to the collaborative approach that we take to strengthening our teaching community. And so a little bit selfishly, because I think for me, it would be helpful to see it, but just even thinking as a way to share information with our community as a whole. I mean, just looking at these reports today, it's amazing how many different committees you are staffing, and staffing a committee is a lot of work, but also provides really important opportunity for staff to engage, but also with communities. So, so just food for thought, maybe something that could be developed in the future.
Yeah, I think that's something we could work on, putting a report together about different levels of engagement.
Any other questions or comments? All right, Bruce, you're just giving a thumbs up. All right. Yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't to make a comment, you know, on the strides that are being made on the mental health. I mean, teaching and learning, I mean, it's kind of the central core of what we do, but yet the student services job, it's not like it's no less easier. If anything, you're bringing, it's more of the how. I mean, teaching and learning is certainly somehow, but a lot of the what. And when it comes to student services, you're dealing with people who are coming from a lot of different backgrounds and so forth with varying abilities, and to coordinate all that and then throw COVID-19 on top of that, and it is definitely a challenge. So I want to say great job in that regard. And I hope we can continue that, whether there's a mental health grant or not, part 3, I guess. But thank you for your work in that area.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Next up is the community relations, community education. I assume this is Tracy.
Yes. So the first part of this report is directly related to our district-wide goal on parent and community engagement and making sure folks are well informed. You have some data here from the school perceptions survey. The two that I think are important on my end of things is really make, pardon? So the part that I think is important, that our families feel like they're getting information during a crisis, and at 90.9%, I think is excellent on our end. And then also that they're getting information that they consider is important. This year we worked with all the buildings to make sure that we were making a concerted effort to get information telling our stories at each of the schools. So having some guidelines and expectations as far as getting a daily post, getting stories out that were more substantial, and being able to get that information on our website and also through our social media accounts. I think in the second half, when we closed, I think it was even more important that we continue to tell our story, so people didn't think that we were just sitting around doing nothing. And so we put a call out to teachers on a weekly basis asking for their stories. And I think the last 2 bullet points are really important in looking at what kind of response we did get this year to our social media accounts. So that final one, that nearly 8% engagement rate on our social media accounts is unheard of. The industry standard is 3%. So we knocked that out of the park. And a lot of that was making sure that we're constantly telling our story. Bounce rate may be a little more confusing to folks, but what bounce rate is, you want a low bounce rate. You want people who come to your website to stay at your website. So you're really looking for a lower number. And again, we brought that number down from last year. So people were coming to the site, finding what they were looking for, or finding more information that they may not have intended to look or find. So we were holding on to people on our website. So those are all good indicators for us. When I look at accomplishments, all of you remember way back in February when we launched our school start time advisory committee. We started out with 60 folks, and we were just about ready to get into some really good conversation when we had to close that down. Look forward to bringing all of those folks back again. We'll probably have to reassess some of our student members, but that'll be good. School safety, even though we're on our final year with the grant dollars, there's still work that's going on. And I'll just draw your attention to one item that's coming up this coming school year that's important, and that I was part of working at the state level on, is a school crisis tip line. So related to school safety, violence, bullying, suicide. So we will be participating in that school safety tip line, and more information to come on that. Regarding our general communication, most of the stuff that's here are pretty standard things that we do within communications. The one thing I think it was a good partnership, or strengthening the partnership with the Ed Foundation. So we moved the Ed Foundation's website onto our website so that our folks who are already looking for it can find it easier. And then also providing the Ed Foundation with the the technical support so that they can keep their information up to date for teachers and community. I'm not going to talk much about school age care because Michelle Hagan's going to follow me and she'll cover school age care. So I'm just talking about community services. So school age care is part of that. This is all within Fund 80. And then community education is part of that. You've got some data here. When you're looking at the data and you look at that spring number there, it looks like our numbers dropped. Yes, they did indeed drop, but what we also lost during that time was swimming during the school year. So we have not been able to secure enough lifeguards and instructors to keep that program going during the school year. We've worked with the YMCA trying to get them to, use our space, provide lessons at our site, but they too struggle with trying to find enough lifeguards and instructors. So that's something we'll continue to look at. When we moved into the closing, we tried to get some of our instructors to teach online. So we did offer 6 online courses right away. And we did have 3 that went ahead, and that was a Spanish class, a dance class, and an ACT prep class. I should also note with our fall winter classes, if you look at the number of classes offered, that did go down. I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing because our numbers of participants went up. So that to me says that we're not we're offering classes that people want to participate in. You can have a lot of classes, but if nobody participates in the classes, there's not as much value to that. I think a huge success was the daddy-daughter dance, which we were able to get in before the closure. I think just the weekend before, we had 800 participants in that event. That's huge. Some things that we added this year, some Orpheum Theater outings. So we have certainly a group of community members who enjoy that and they don't have to try to figure out how to get into the Twin Cities. We rent a coach bus and help them get in. We also partnered with the Phipps Children's Theater this year to offer a Friday night pajama pizza and play event where the kids get to meet the actors and see the show, and parents kind of have a night off. So that's all good stuff. The Raider Fitness Center, again, we were just at that point where things were going really well for us, and then we closed it down. We had, you've got some data here as far as where we were at with our numbers. So going from that small number and having 1,200 people in the fitness center in the month of February was some awesome growth. So we look forward to being able to get that back up and running quickly. And then you also have a lot of data here as far as facilities and what we're using, the number of hours we're using facilities outside the school day. You've got some permit numbers that just tells you what the number of contracts we have with folks who are using the facilities. That number obviously is less than what it was the year before, and so it doesn't include all the contracts that were canceled. I think it's interesting if you look at the gym use though, like at the high school, we missed a whole season here and we still had more hours in the gym than the previous year. So I know you've heard it a lot that our facilities are used we fill them up. There isn't much extra space within our facilities. So that's pretty much it for my report.
Mr. President.
Go ahead, Rob.
So just a couple quick questions for you. With regards to social media, I know we use Facebook. I know that millennials tend to not use Facebook as much as older people like myself. I hate saying that, by the way. Are we migrating or using it all, Twitter or Snapchat? Yep. Even? And then go ahead, I'll ask my second question in a second.
Sure. Yeah, no, we've had a Twitter account, a district-wide Twitter account for a while now. And yes, if I look at the demographics, that's typically our younger set of folks. Instagram, also a district-wide account. We do not use Snapchat.
And do you know how do we fare as compared to Chippewa? I know Chippewa has a fairly robust social media presence, and I guess I'm just more curious than anything.
I would have to look at what Chippewa's data is. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Oh, good. Just curious. Thank you.
All right. Other questions or comments then regarding communications, community relations? All right. I don't see anything. And then just as a heads up, I think we're going to segue into school age care, but we'll probably take a break following the school age care report. But I'll go into that one since it is related to these community relations. And I also wanted to just say, great job in hitting your goal as far as the satisfaction rate, so to speak. When it comes to communications, I mean, what you're fighting is the community ignorance. I mean, it's if the community doesn't know what's going on in our district, it's hard for them to have a positive outlook about it, and people can get frustrated. So it's one of the most visible aspects to it. And so thank you for your efforts in that regard, Tracy. All right, next up, we'll go to school age care and Ms. Hagan.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you about our school age care program. I would like to start by thanking all of the school age care staff. As you can see by the numbers above, there are quite a few Hudson students being provided high quality childcare by a dedicated staff. It truly is our team that makes our school age care program exceptional. I will mention a few of our highlights from this school year. This is the first year we provided service to Rivercrest, and that went well. We also worked with each school site team to improve consistency and continuity of our program implementation, which is important so that school age care is offered at each site. This year, we were focusing on communication, so we created a monthly family newsletter, and also a staff newsletter was distributed monthly for staff to get information and for us to share successes. At Willow River, we integrated 4K children into our school age care program, creating a 4K in kindergarten group where the activities were specifically designed to focus on the developmental needs of this age group. We worked on creating expanded activity planning that required a balance of creative, physical, social, emotional, and exploration activities, and continued to work on homework incentives so that the students could work on homework after school. This spring, we have been providing childcare for healthcare workers and first responders at EP Rock. We have been able to support 35 children, and we were able to provide many opportunities for children to participate in meaningful and challenging activities. We were also able to support their distant learning schoolwork during the day, and we're still doing that now. So we're having a good time at EP Rock. We have been working on creating weekly meetings with our teams, and additionally, having meetings with the lead care providers individually while we work on concerns that they may have on site. We're also been working on having professional development that's focused on team building. In the fall, Tracy created a Hudson scavenger hunt, ended with a treat at Kanoki's. The staff are still talking about that in the spring, looking forward to whatever interesting things we're going to create to build teams. In the future, we're going to be working on the newly created Wisconsin after-school childcare coursework. We're excited about that because most of the coursework relates to daycares and younger students. So this will be the first time Wisconsin is offering coursework that relates directly to school age care. So that is the highlights of school age care.
All right, very good. And do we have comments, questions? Okay. I'm not seeing any. Well, I thought some of those results on the survey, satisfaction, that's great, 91.5%. Believe it's a great value and providing a good service. So that's outstanding. Anyone else? Otherwise, at this time it's 7:25. We'll take a 5-minute break and reconvene at 7:30.
Okay, it's 7:30, and next up on the reports, we have Sue Helmers, and I do want to point out that so far the award for the briefest report goes to Michelle Hagan, and so that she set the bar pretty high. Although Sue, we will be fair to you. You have 2 reports. We'll take your total time and divide it by 2. So with that, Sue, we'll turn it over to you, and we'll let you go with whichever one you want to start with, Holton or Hudson Community 4K.
Wow, the pressure is on.
Yeah.
I will start with the Holton one. As you know, we had a very unexpected year, but I think all things considered, we were able to identify some silver linings, particularly with staff and student relations, which I will talk about shortly. As stated earlier, we were unable to reach our SMART goal due to the school closure, but based on my mid-year SLO data that I just had that I had looked through here again, we were really on a great trajectory. So I think the whole staff was disappointed that we weren't able to complete the year and find out where we would end up, because things looked really great in January. But some of the targets that we included in our SMART goal and some of the action plans were continued use of our Jan Richardson guided reading template. And this year we received some new Fountas and Pinnell guided reading texts that really worked well and complemented each other. The additional 70 minutes of prep on planning time for PLCs was greatly appreciated and was quite helpful for this planning. And our teams worked with the instructional coach, with special educators, with interventionists, and everybody came to the table to identify ways to best meet the needs of all of our students. We did data roll-throughs to monitor where kids were at, and collaboratively came up with ways to meet the needs of those kids that might need some additional support. So all of this has really set the stage for this fall when all of our buildings are implementing the Fountas and Pinnell classroom curriculum. And I think people are really, really excited. It seemed to have gone very well at Willow, and all of our buildings are excited to implement that this fall. As Erin mentioned, we did have a strong focus on our trauma-sensitive schools training. The counseling team and social workers did training on trauma-sensitive schools. We also learned about how trauma affects the brain and the ACEs scores and how those can really impact kids and their ability to learn. And so we saw that focus and talked about it as a district, but also brought it into our buildings. And at Holton, we really reinforced the importance of building and maintaining a safe environment for our learners, as well as recognizing that their behaviors were often communication of something that they needed or something that they were trying to communicate to us through these behaviors. And I think that helped teachers recognize and be able to work with students to make sure we were getting to them at the level that they needed. This also built into our focus on student and staff connections. We, as a staff, identified students that didn't have as many staff members that had a personal connection. We also reversed that and asked students to identify 2 staff members they felt connected to, and then sort of did a cross check of those names, and then identified and paired up teachers with those students who made very intentional ways to connect with those kids. So they very intentionally sought them out in the hallways to greet them in the morning and that sort of thing, based on that premise that if students feel connected and feel supported, that their learning is going to be much stronger and they're going to be in a really good place for that to happen. And so our whole staff really felt strongly about that this year and worked on ways to connect to students. And that was one of the silver linings that my staff identified through the whole COVID closing, is those relationships were able to be maintained through our virtual classrooms with not only students, but also families. And that many of my teachers were connecting one-on-one with kids, but also with their parents, and made comments like they had opportunities to talk and brainstorm with parents more than they had even when they were in the classroom. And so I think some things happen that we will be able to continue into next year or into the years that follow based on some of the experiences and things that happened with virtual learning and connecting that way. We had an innovation day where we took our early release days and the staff collaboratively planned some different classes. Kind of reminds me of those summer school classes, those enrichment classes, where teachers were able to pick passions, and then students were able to pick the classes they wanted to take, just in areas of their personal interests. And these ranged from art, science, STEM classes, fitness, cooking. We had first and second graders grouped together and third through fifth, incorporating teachers, specialists, support staff, my health assistant, my secretary, anybody that could helped out, so that we had small classes or co-teaching so that kids were able to explore something new. It went really well. We did the same thing or same concept in March, but it was with their grade levels. And so they picked something that aligned to their curriculum and did something extra that maybe they wouldn't normally have time to do. And probably one of our biggest celebrations this year was the completion of the art bench. And we had a grand opening. I've shared this before, but our grand opening was on September 21st, last fall, where we worked collaboratively with the county, the township, the school, and all the people that had been involved from the very, very beginning of the bench. We had over 100 people come that day, even though it was gloomy and looked like it was going to rain. We were thrilled at how many people came. There was music, food, t-shirts, games. The kids really, the fourth and fifth graders, planned and took care of most of the details for the celebration as well as for the bench. We now, it is open, and I have heard through the township that they've had people ask to reserve it for weddings. It is actually quite a beautiful spot. And now that the whole entire loop trail is open, it opened on June 1st. We have a lot of traffic coming through there, so I see people over there all of the time. The FIPS is working with me right now to tentatively plan a summer reading program that would maybe take place right at that bench. She has a reading program that happens at some of the benches along the trail, and they really want to highlight the one there at Holton this summer. So a good year, despite the unexpected closing and change of what we do. I feel like the staff really stepped up, all of our staff, and made it work and made sure that kids kept learning. From that, any questions about Holton?
Any questions or comments? I didn't even see a thumbs up from Sue on the art bench. There she is. Right now she's her hand goes up.
I was there that morning of the dedication, and it was like you had little chills on your arms. It was such a wonderful moment. I was just going to say, it seems like over the years since you've been principal, I'm always hearing such wonderful, innovative things going on at your school, whether kids are bringing their watermelons they grew into lunch or whatever. So thank you for the work that you're doing there.
Thank you.
I see a hand up of our board member from St. Joe Township, or
I just had to say we love Holton. I mean, it's really fantastic. Keep up the great work.
All right.
Yeah, the traffic on the loop trail has really picked up this week. We did our fifth grade send off on Friday, and there was all kinds of people that were stopping and watching, and families, kids of all sizes and shapes and families, and it's a really neat thing to see.
All right.
All right.
I think we got it.
right,
Now
so-
we're moving to the 4K.
Into the 4K. So I will say this was a little bit more challenging to do online, but we were able to move forward and offer, I feel like, a quality 4K program as much as we could do online. This past year, I know I shared last year that we were in the process of identifying our priority standards, working with a representative from CISA who came in and helped us look at the Wisconsin standards and narrow down hundreds of them to the 22 that we felt were most important for our program. Throughout this year, we did a lot of professional learning so that all of our sites had a common understanding of what those standards were, how to instruct and how to assess, so that we were as consistently as possible running a program that would create kids ready for our district kindergarten program. So we met in December and in November and in October and January, and went through their trimester scores, or where their kids were at. And we looked at the data that they had collected in mixed groups from all of our sites. And it really developed into these conversations about, well, what did you look for and how did you measure that? And the collaboration was amazing. It was kind of one of those moments where you think, wow, this is what I want to see happening with our 4K program, where all 12 of our sites are working together. Even though they are separate businesses, they were working very closely together to develop a really deep and common understanding of these standards, what they meant, and how to assess and move kids forward. And so I was so excited about the end of the year, because we were going to look at kind of where we landed to make sure that we had chosen the correct standards, that we didn't pick things that might be too easy or things that very few were able to accomplish. But we'll have to put that off until next year. So the feedback I got from staff, from both site directors and teachers, was that this was some of the best discussion that they'd had in a really long time professionally about what's best for kids. And so it was really quite exciting, and one of those personal, professional things that like Sue said, it kind of gives you goosebumps. So enrollment wise, we were this year a little bit ahead of the year before. We had about 12 more students in January for the January count between last year and this year. We, at this point, or last year we had 31 open enrolled students, and we have 23 coming in this year. Of those 31 open enrolled, 12 are continuing into our kindergarten. And so we're running a little more than half that are staying with us. We are about 20 less at this point in Skyward than we were last year, but I really feel that COVID has had an impact on that. And that's something that has been shared at some of the statewide networking groups I've been a part of. They are noticing the same thing. We have an increase in repeats. We had 15 last year, and we have 19 this year. I think people who might have been on the offense of whether or not they were going to send their child to kindergarten, when they lost a third of the year, that made them kind of decide to hold their kids instead. I think we're having fewer people sign up this year or register because not sure if we're going to be virtual or face-to-face, and that will impact their decision. If it's going to be virtual, they'll probably just wait and do it the following year when it isn't. So I think our numbers are good. They're strong where we are. But I think we're going to see some changes depending on what happens this fall in terms of face-to-face or virtual. Virtual, like I said, was a little challenging for 4K. We took those 22 standards and anchored activities on those 22 standards and sent out a menu to families every Sunday of things that would support activities they could do themselves at home that would support those standards. In addition, many sites sent out their own menus and activities. I took our district expectations of elementary and modified them a little bit for our 4K sites. They did need to make weekly contact like we did with elementary. Instead of 2 video lessons, I had them do one where they either read or did some sort of teaching. And then they did have to do a virtual meeting, either Google Meet or some of them use Zoom, with their students once a week. And there was some teachers that were a little nervous and didn't feel like they knew how to do that. But by the end, they were telling me how much they enjoyed being able to see their kids and interact. We were able to track kids that we couldn't get a hold of, and either through older siblings or we were able to connect with every 4K student at least once throughout for a time throughout the closure. So I feel like we really had our eyes on those kids and were able to keep kind of track of where they were. It's hard to know what that will look like when they come in, but I think overall, our staff, kindergarten staff, feels like our kids are coming in really prepared for school. think our 4K students or 4K teachers really appreciate the clarity of having those standards and knowing what it is that we want them to teach, and now building on how to teach and how to assess. So I think that we're going to really continue to see our 4K program continue to grow and have positive benefits on our 4K-12 program. As I end, I just want to wish best of luck to Mogi and Sandy, and thanks for all that you have done for our district. Any questions about 4K?
Any questions on that? As with all of these reports, we've heard how COVID-19 has thrown a little curveball in each one of these, but I can't imagine anything more difficult than teaching 4-year-olds virtually. So that was a good job, and we'll see where we go from here. But thank you for that report. Anyone else have a question or comment? All right, thank you, Sue, for your double report and for your work in both of those areas. And next up will be Joe. You've got Hudson Prairie.
Yep. So when I started 2 hours ago, I put my family up there with the Avengers movie, and so I can hear the banging around upstairs. So the movie must be me done. So I apologize if there's any loud noise as I give my report. So I'll be short and to the point, so you can hopefully not have to hear my family come down and engage here. So for Hudson Prairie, this really was a year of change. With the boundary exception, we were welcoming in many new students and staff. And so our big focus was all about community building with the new staff and students as the year started. Our wellness team hosted events around that to engage families, our new families especially, and our new students and staff. It revolved around promoting healthy habits, family fitness nights, a fall run club, power up challenge that we always do, roller skating, bowling nights, those sorts of activities to really welcome in those new families and make them feel a part of that Hudson community as we shaped it this year. As a staff, we really focused on love and logic training with all the new staff to have a common language and build that community. Our staff committed to starting each day with responsive classroom strategies, out in the halls, welcoming students, morning meetings, afternoon meetings to end the day, wrapping up for students as well. All working on that culture and community piece. As we got into the year, and with all the new students in and looking at some of the trend data with students coming in from different buildings, we were really excited as we saw that mid-year data come in, kind of where we were trending and where we were as we started the year up. Obviously, we weren't going to get to finish up and see what those results would be at the end of the year, but I'm not concerned or worried at all with what we saw there. I'm actually kind of interested in seeing where students are when they come back. I don't believe there's going to be a big of a dip as what you read about or what you hear with the clientele that we have here in Hudson and as engaged as families were throughout the closure. So I'm kind of really interested to get into that fall. I'm more interested in what re-entry and reintroducing students into our building looks like to be able to build that capacity a little bit quicker in the academic realm. So I'm excited about what that could potentially look like as we plan going forward with this summer. And then as we go into the kind of the post-COVID era or the COVID era, we had just went through some staff training, looking at the school perception survey and doing some professional development around staff engagement and really reflecting on what staff thought was going well and things that they could take and maybe improve upon. Right as that occurred, though, I had to take a quick little medical leave this year, and that's right when COVID hit as well. And so that kind of got off the tracks there for a little bit, but I'm excited to start that right back up in the fall, and we'll hit the ground running with that again. What I was most excited about was as I came back from medical leave, I was excited to be coming back a little bit early, but I came back right as the very next day we had to leave to go on our COVID break, right? And so there was a kind of a mad scramble there transitioning from Dr. Hamburg to myself back. But once we got settled into that That first week was a little touch and go, but once we got settled into what online learning can look like, I was very impressed with what we were able to do in a short amount of time. Our family engagement and technology rose up with the feedback I've been getting from families and from teaching. Just forced PD to have to learn different technologies, to not be afraid to pick up the phone and make phone calls and interact with people a little bit more than they would when you were in that typical school setting. Teachers found ways to support students in very creative and effective ways. Between the counselor Aria and myself, looking into wellness checks, and if teachers came to us with students that were not engaged for a few days at a time, we found ways to connect with those families, even if it was a home visit, just to see what was going on and what we could do to potentially help the situations that they were in. Really impressed with the depth of video lessons teachers were able to do, the seesaw feedback from Google Meets to phone calls to emails home, modified work schedules. When you take away, I have a newfound respect for people who do work from home on a daily basis. To not have hours set to your day really takes a lot to accommodate and to interact with families what works for them. And every family was going through a different situation, from occupations to just different situations they had going, and our staff was very receptive to working with families at all hours of the day. And I think that's one thing that stood out the most, is hearing stories from staff on how they interacted and engaged to get kids to interact with them. Was very impressive. So in closing, I guess I would like to make sure that I give thanks where it's due here. So I would like to give a big thank you to Dr. Amy Hamburg. She made me feel very comfortable stepping away for a little bit and stepping right in and helping out when I had to take that quick medical leave. The elementary principal team is always supportive and great, and we're lucky that we actually have a team of principals to work with. Very supportive. And then my administrative assistants, I got to give Amy Briggs and Linda Keach a big shout out, keeping things moving very smoothly. They always say that your secretaries kind of run your building. Well, that's very evident with what happened over the closure with Amy and Linda in the office. And then just a big thank you to the staff, our families, and then the students at Hudson Prairie. It was a tough go there for a little bit. And so all the reaching out and outpouring chokes you up a little bit, because you don't realize what you have until it gets taken away a little bit. And so I was really proud of the perseverance this year. We started out new, we had to build together, and then you go into a closure where you're not really comfortable with everybody yet as you're building that together. And I think it brought us closer. There's silver linings that come out of things like this. And it really did help us bring each other together a little bit closer. And we're excited to keep that momentum moving throughout the summer and then into next school year. So that's Hudson Prairie's year in a glance. And I think I won the shortest time award there, Michelle.
No, I think Nick's our keeper of time, so I'll defer to him. I'm not watching the time as closely, but thank you for the report. Any questions from board members, comments? All right,
Joe,
Carrie.
you didn't win, but it was a great report, so thank you.
All right. Bruce?
Yeah, hey, Joe, thank you for that. I hope you're feeling strong and back to health and doing good there. So just thinking about you, and glad to hear that everything's going well for you.
And Sue, you had your hand up.
Oh, I just was going to thank Joe too. I know it's just tricky having to take medical leave, and I didn't even know you were gone until I ran into Amy at EP Rock, because she's also doing mentor work there. And so I caught up on that. But I always enjoy your reports. They're lively and full of enthusiasm and good work too. So thank you.
It's good to go unnoticed sometimes, Sue.
Well, I'm looking forward to running into you in the hallway at the YMCA one of these early mornings when they start opening earlier. So
you might not be able to keep up with me anymore, Jamie.
All right. Good to hear. Good to hear. Okay, I guess our 10th and final report tonight is Andrea on human resources.
Yes, so I'm last, and I don't think I'm going to win the award on being shortest, sorry, but I will do my best to be concise. So each year during my department's highlights, I try to identify a theme for our work. Last year it was recruitment, recognition, and accountability. This year is a little more straightforward, the pre-COVID-19 era and the COVID-19 era. During the pre-COVID-19 era, we were diligently working on our various initiatives, focusing on engagement, wellness, and processes. In terms of engagement, we revised our onboarding processes significantly over the past year, and the work will continue into 2020-2021. We implemented 30 90-day check-ins with all staff in order to increase early engagement with our new staff. We have already implemented several of their suggestions this year. In particular, we're seeking ways to integrate our staff in the district community earlier and more comprehensively in creative ways. In terms of wellness, this was fun. We had two big wellness events this year, the Welcome Back Walk at the high school and the Wellness Challenge in the winter. Both were successful and popular events with our staff. For the Welcome Back Walk, staff walked or ran, so one of them ran a lot. They ran over 2,126 laps over the hour, which equated to about 530 miles. And for the Winter Wellness Challenge, over 353 staff participated on teams. We were hoping for 150. So we more than doubled that, which was exciting. And with that walk, the month-long challenge, it was 42,357 miles. So we're super excited to build upon these events going into next year. Third, in terms of processes, the implementation of the True Time platform, which means we went from paper time cards to electronic timekeeping for our hourly staff and time off system for all of our staff, was a Herculean-sized initiative. HR and the finance department led through most of the past year. Holly Butler and Mark Humlin took the lead on this initiative and truly did a phenomenal job. They rocked it. It was a huge change for staff, both the hourly staff as well as the Hudson lead members who supervised them. Holly, Mark, and then Jen Lotzi as well held dozens of trainings with staff and supervisors throughout June, July, and August, offering endless support to help ease the transition. There were certainly challenges along the way, and we all learned a great deal over this year of implementation, but it's been successful largely due to their efforts. In fact, I think we were just hitting our stride with the system, and then COVID-19 hit, which presented a whole litany of other challenges we needed to overcome. So now the COVID-19 era. During this initial period since March 2020, we have pivoted our focus radically to focus on the implementation of the new federal FFCRA, hosting, interviewing, and hiring all staff remotely instead of in person, and maintaining pay for staff even in the absence of available work. Adaptability is key throughout all of this. We have changed handbook language, changed processes with respect to pay, contracts, and evaluations of certified and support staff, and have sought to be proactive in our application of the new laws. A great example of this is the work of the hiring process. We had just posted our vacant certified staff positions in mid-March when all of this began. Once school was closed, we moved aggressively forward with filling these vacancies instead of waiting for the pandemic to pass. Since March 17th, we've coordinated over 36 different certified staff hires, involving over 200 staff members participating on Zoom interview panels. And as of today, I'm going to knock on wood, we are 100% filled with certified staff for the fall, which is the earliest since I've been here in 8 years. So very proud of that work. And that was a whole HR department that worked with the building level administration. Then in terms of FFCRA administration and COVID-19 overall, we've set up over 50 meetings with staff to discuss their particular situation so far, whether it was potential layoff or a staff member who was afraid to return to work due to COVID-19 exposure. My motto that I keep emphasizing to my HR staff and my messaging to Hudson lead members as situations arise has been to lead with kindness. These are stressful and uncertain times, and staff are seeking leadership from all of us in administration, compassionate leadership, listening to our staff's concerns, being transparent with our whys behind our actions, and leaning into conversations that are hard or uncomfortable, because offering that level of support and leading through this crazy, challenging time shows our commitment to our values and to our staff overall. I'm incredibly proud of our work in HR during this time, and I know going into 2020, 2021, we'll build upon this hard work and continue to increase our levels of support so our staff can focus on their passion once again, which is supporting and teaching our students.
Right.
Any questions?
Very good. Thank you for your report. Do we have comments or questions from board members? I'm not seeing any hands waving, but congratulations on being 100% filled, and we're not even halfway through June. Sometimes we've hired people 2 days before that staff incoming orientation, so.
It will probably happen still, but as of now, we're going to focus on the fact that we're 100% filled.
All right, very good. All right. Anyway, great report, and thank you for pointing all of that out. It's great to hear all the things that are going on, and all moving forward with similar concerns, but yet unique ones in each of these areas. So thank you for your work in that area, Andrea. Great job. All right. Next up then, we will turn it over, get to the action portion of our agenda and start off with consent agenda items. I'll entertain a motion pursuant to the wording with expenditures. And I'll have to hear somebody speak, because then I can't flip through all of these now that.
James.
Mr. President?
Yes, Bruce. Bruce got the first James in, and I'll let him make the motion, but Carrie, you can have.
Sorry, Carrie, if you're very eager to do it, I'd be happy to let you. Move the approval of the May 11th, 2020 board meeting minutes. May 13, 2020, special meeting minutes, May 19. 2020 special meeting minutes, May 26, 2020 special meeting minutes. I think I have the wrong one, James.
Okay. Do you want to move approval of all the consent items, or should we let?
Well, I finished up through point 1, so I mean I could finish with just point 2 and 3, and that way we'll cover it.
All right.
It's just it's on the screen there. This is what is the phrase we need with the dollar amounts.
Thank you. All right. So move the approval of the consent items, and the chief financial operations officer be authorized to pay bills in the amount of $3,393,269.43.
Right. Is there a second? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Unmute if you're against. I'm not hearing any against, so the consent items are approved. Next up would be the second reading of the second grouping of student policies 411.1 through 411. With deletions of unnecessary related policies. Is there a motion?
Mr. President?
Move approval.
Okay. We got a motion for approval. Heather?
Sure.
I appreciate your politeness and asking to be recognized. We'll go with you for the second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the second reading of the second grouping of these student policies. Is there any comment or question? Nothing's been changed since the first reading, and all of this was discussed before there was ever any first reading. So, Sue.
I'll just say that I want to thank Superintendent Olette and Aaron and Andrea for all the real dedicated work in rewriting and combing through it and working with Shana Lewis so that we have language and processes that will benefit our students and staff. Thank you.
Yes, definitely an area that needed updating, and now that is done with new areas. And all right, any other comments or questions? I don't see any hands, so all those in favor of approval of the second reading, say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, same sign. All right, the ayes have it for approval, and these are now our new policies in these areas. Next up is the nutrition services, a 1-year extension of food suppliers. And I think we can handle these with one motion. Nick or Andrea, would you, or Tim, I guess, this is a contract area. So Tim, would you agree that probably one motion will handle it? I know you have some explanation, but go ahead.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, you don't have to, if you can take action on these on the 29th, that's fine as well. But these are for our major food suppliers. HPS is a company that we've been using and so we have a 1-year extension option. We actually have 3 of those that happen at our decision, as long as pricing is good, the delivery is good, things are reliable. So we generally found the pricing to be good, the selection of the products, we get quite a bit of variety, and so we're recommending that we move forward with HPS, and that's through Gordon Food Service is the supplier through HPS. And then also we've got for milk and bakery products, we've got Plainview Milk Cooperative, which is out of Hastings, and we've had real good service from them. And then Panagold Bakery Company, so same with those as well.
Yeah, one motion, if you do want to approve tonight, one motion, approve the 2 extensions, or the 3 extensions, that would be fine, and then you won't have to bring it up at the next meeting if you guys are comfortable with that.
Mr. President.
Yes, Rob.
I move at the recommendation of administration to approve a 1-year extension for food suppliers, HPS, Plainview Milk Cooperative, and Panagold Bakery Company.
Second by Bob. Motion by Rob. And good. Any further discussion? All right. These 1-year extensions on all 3 areas then. I guess no questions being posed to Tim either. All right. In that case then, all those in favor of approval of the extension say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed say nay. All right. The motion is successful. We have 1-year extensions. Thank you, Tim, for your recommendation in that regard.
You bet.
All right. Last on our topics for discussion and/or possible action is the opening of indoor facilities to the public. Folks recall, we had 4 May meetings. One of those meetings was predominantly in closed session where we were talking with our legal counsel. It came out of there, and we, in open session, approved our summer school, the school age care, and other items. The one area that we deferred approval of was the indoor facilities. And this is the one area where we did receive a comment. I think all board members received that email. It was rather thoughtful email advocating for the reopening of at least the indoor pool. And if you recall, that's having work done for the roof to be removed. So the earliest that would be open is July 6th. But we have other facilities besides the pool as well. And so is there any specific update, Nick or Tracy, with regard, or Tim, with regard to, facilities and, Fund 80 concerns, I suppose, and whatever might be the case, as far as getting those reopened sooner or later?
I think, we've been trying to work with public health on this, and looking at what other districts are doing. I mean, I think at this time, I think one of our lowest risk environments is probably the swimming pool. So I think, as soon as that's ready to open, I think we'd be ready to open that. I mean, right now we thought we'd capitalize on this closure and get the roof done so we didn't have to close it for 5 weeks at some other time. So they've been working on the roof for the last 2 weeks, and so we'll get that done. As far as gyms go and things like that, I guess our recommendation would be, right now, public health is they don't want to see, mass gatherings over 10. She did try to explain in the meeting today that a mass gathering would be 10 people or more that don't know each other. And so it was, the whole cabinet team was on that call. Is that kind of sum up what she kind of talked about? There's something about not knowing each other, and that's what made it more of a mass gathering than if all 10 people knew each other. Aaron, do you remember that at all, or you're shaking your head?
I remember her saying a mass gathering is when you don't know the person standing next to you.
So I mean, that's the tough thing, because more than likely, with the exception of if you were going to allow somebody to do like a really big camp or something like that, I would think that most of our kids are going to know each other, and most of our adults that are working with them are going to know them. So, I think as of right now, if we look at our indoor facilities, kind of the recommendation would be the indoor facilities, kind of looking at that June 6th date as kind of being our open date. I think that's when the pool is going to be done. We could also have the basketball courts open. Or sorry, July 6th. But however, the one thing that I think we may put a hold on, and we just got to see, is the fitness center component. Is just we have to have more conversation. I know Tracy and I have talked a little bit, but we just have to have more conversation about how can we ensure it, that we can keep people following what they need to do, and it's not because of anything our staff has done. It's just I know the YMCA is opening up and some of these other places, but the thought process would be maybe to shoot for like a July 6th date where we would open up our indoor facilities again, following that same kind of definition of if you have 10 people that don't know each other, that's kind of the cap. But I guess if it's 10, you could have more than 10 if I guess they all knew each other. We couldn't get quite an explanation what that is. But I think the other thing is we'd have to put some guidelines in place as to what we don't want to do is say, okay, everything is capped at 10. And, you could have 10 people in the gym at Holton and 10 people in the East Gym at the high school, because they're just totally different spaces. And so I think what we would want to do is come up with some of those guidelines administratively and say, okay, are we going to say it's 10 people per basketball court that you're utilizing? So like in the high school gym, it'd be up to 30 people. Or the other guideline we could potentially use, and we haven't talked about it as a team, would be the guidelines that the state talked about using with stores, which is basically one person for every 1,000 square feet, I think is what they were talking about. So for example, if we had a gym that was 10,000 square feet, you could have up to 10 people. But if you had a gym that's 30,000 square feet, you could have up to 30 people. I don't know. I mean, it's really, it's wide open. I mean, we don't have a great handle on this.
Well, the other question too would be, or needing direction on, is competitions. Are we opening just for practices? Are we allowing people to compete and having kids come from other areas to compete?
Go ahead, Bruce.
Okay. All right, Bruce, you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, maybe just a comment. I mean, I think more and more, I think Minnesota is now starting to open their gyms. And I think that's maybe next week that they're doing that. I think we'll see more of that activity happening. I technically kind of support the July 6th. These are options and opportunities that everyone has a choice on, right? And if they want to choose to use the facilities, that's a choice that they have, as long as we're keeping it within guidelines or rules that the CDC is providing in terms of guidance. I get that we have to do it somewhat at a state level, but I think having some of the perspective of what more is happening at a national level, I think is important to take a look at. And if we wait until July 6th, we'll see more information come about, in the next few weeks, because who knows, maybe the numbers will spike again, and there might be more guidance to say, don't have those types of facilities open. So we'll have a couple more weeks to kind of assess it. July 6th, it's a natural date that, comes just after the 4th of July holiday. And I don't know, I feel we also had the WIA weigh in, and they're opening up fall sports for schools. So you have to believe that there will be some coaches that will want to get their kids into a weight program, for instance. So I don't know. I feel when there are other safety measures that allow people to open things up safely, as long as we're following similar guidelines, we're not preventing the use of public facilities.
Okay, thank you for that comment, and I'm going to get to Rob next, but I just want to be clear that there's nothing saying that we have to have a motion tonight, but we certainly can, and obviously we're meeting again in 3 weeks, which would be one more board meeting before that July 6th date. But before I get to Rob's comment, maybe your comment had to do with Tracy's question. But I'm curious as a follow-up to that, because her question was, what about competitions? Is there a recommendation from administration to treat competitions differently than pickup basketball games?
We do not have, we haven't had that conversation yet.
Okay. All right, well, then Rob, you had a comment.
Well, more of a question. So, we know that Riverfront's open. We know that the YMCA is opening or open. What are they doing specifically with their gyms? Do we know what's Chippewa doing? What's River Falls doing? Just more out of curiosity than anything.
So there is a very detailed guide as far as what do you need to do to open up like a fitness center. So I would expect that those are the same guidelines that we would use when we open. I mean, it talks about where do you place items that need to be cleaned? How do you identify machines that need to be cleaned? The frequency of cleaning equipment. How do you space people out who are using the equipment?
So if we have that set of rules, the guidelines, and others are opening, what would be our resistance to following suit?
We don't really have resistance. I mean, and really there's the guidelines like Tracy talked about as it relates to fitness center. It's tough to find consistent guidelines as it relates to gyms, for example. I don't believe the YMCA's gym is open to just like open gym. I mean, I don't believe that's open yet. Maybe Jamie or Bruce would know, or whoever. And I don't think their pool is open to open swim. I think it's swimming lessons or certain things. So, I mean, I'm just looking at the Minnesota stuff because they've done a pretty nice job laying things out. Again, they're not allowing games. Go ahead.
I do know, like at the Y, that you do have temperatures that need to be taken. So you have to have your temp taken before you come in. You're asked some questions. Have you had any of these symptoms in the last, or recently in the last 24 hours? They have family swim, Nick, and then they have lap swimming. So I mean, technically it's open swim because you can go in there at any time, and but there's only two people allowed per lane at any given time. So, they have guidelines for each of those areas. And then there are other areas that are not open yet at the Y, and they'll be opening those, I think, in time, but they've been, starting out slow and then expanding the services that they provide.
Yeah, I guess Go ahead, Carrie.
Well, as it relates to our discussion this evening, as far as the pool reopening, it probably is the safest area to reopen. So a July 6th date would make sense. As far as our gyms, I would be comfortable with practices, probably not competitions, because that's obviously very intimate contact with basketball. As far as the CDC guideline about 10 people that know one another, I think that can probably just be disregarded. I don't know why that point would even be made. Certainly you can catch illness from someone you know just as easily from someone you don't know. But regarding the fitness center, I would say we could still vote on that at the next meeting, but I'd be comfortable voting on whether or not to reopen the pool and gyms for practices at the July 6th date when the high school opens for summer school.
All right.
Mr. President.
Yes, Rob.
To add on to what Carrie was talking about, what I've been hearing most about as far as a real desire to get into a specific space has been the fitness center, especially around preparing for Raider Elite and, some of the other things that would allow our students, frankly, to give them, some of them, something to do, within that fitness center. I've heard some about the gyms. Certainly there's interest, but there's more passion around the fitness center, so to supplement what you're saying, Carrie, is if there's an opportunity to use the fitness center and follow the cleaning guidelines and we're comfortable with that, I mean, I would suggest also including that in the summary Carrie provided.
Well, Rob, I think we already did open the Raider Elite on July 6th. That's already open.
Yeah,
so
but I'm asking
students can use the facility. This is opening up to non-student use to the public. Am I wrong about that?
Well, Raider Elite has a designated time, but to Rob's point, we have a lot of students who use the fitness center outside of that Raider Elite time. I'll just point out I'm not trying to direct things either way, but if we wait until the 29th, we're going to have to staff the fitness center. I mean, we do have people on standby, but I mean, just the turnaround. So that's another point to consider.
All right. Well, I'm open to a motion then, if somebody's got a motion ready, and then we can, Carrie.
Can I ask one further question, Mr. President?
Sure.
Sorry, my internet is not working too well. Would we want to make a motion regarding the fitness center, obviously already for the Raider Elite athletes, but also students outside of the community at this point? So staff it for students, but hold off on community use until the meeting on the 29th?
Okay. So is that a motion?
No, hold on. Let me stop you.
No, I'm asking.
Yeah.
Oh.
Let me just stop you. We can't do things that are directed at students until June 30th. Okay, so if you open up the fitness center for public use and a student happens to have a membership because their family has a membership, that's one thing. But if you open up the fitness center for student use, or any of our facilities only for student use, the order is still in place that we are not to be utilizing our facilities for student use until June 30th. Now, that doesn't mean that HBA couldn't come in, rent a gym, and bring kids in. It's just that we can't designate it as student use, because that is what they're telling us. Go ahead, Bruce.
Sorry, I just want to make sure that Carrie's question was completed there. I don't want to interrupt, or it's a separate question.
So hopefully,
Carrie,
so people understand what I'm saying is we can absolutely. It's just once we start saying we're only going to allow our kids to come in and use it, then it starts to look like it's student use, and we've been told that we can't have it be. We can't do anything face to face with kids, school district run, until June 30th. However,
but Nick, the discussion's been doing it July 6th. I don't think anybody's advocated for opening anything up before July 6th. So
I heard Rob talk about opening it up earlier than July 6th. Is that what I?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Okay.
Okay, and my point was July 6th.
Okay, because I thought Rob said earlier, and then Carrie was reiterating earlier, so that's why, so that's
Right.
why July 6th, it's not an issue right now. The state could come out and say, even after July 1, no, they still do have the authority to do that. Go ahead, Bruce.
My question is just tied to, I mean, we had Shayna on the phone last meeting, I believe. Is there going to be a waiver or anything that we're going to be asking people to sign as they, would come in to use any of the facilities, just noting that, this is, use at your own.
Yeah,
I don't know.
we can post signs. I think, we've had conversations with Shayna, we've had conversations with our liability attorneys and everything. I mean, you can't waive your right to sue. And so, we do have governmental immunity that comes into play. I'm not sure the waiver really plays much of a role. I know
Okay.
the one thing that all of our attorneys have been pretty clear on is do not get in the business of checking temperatures because it will be the quickest way for you to assume liability. Because if you miss somebody that has a temperature or something like that, or you don't check somebody. But there would be some signage. Obviously, it's kind of using at their own risk, kind of a due process type of thing. But right now, we would not anticipate necessarily signed waivers in order to use, because on July 6th, you got to remember we're going to be doing summer school, and we're not anticipating having kids or parents sign waivers as it relates to COVID summer school.
All
Very good.
I just wanted to correct one thing.
Thank you.
And one thing, Bruce, I don't know where you got that they're taking temps at the Y, but I've been there 5 times and they haven't taken my temperature once. They asked
really?
you. Yeah.
When they had a reopening video where they showed that you'll have a temperature taken, and so they must not be doing that.
It could happen, but it hasn't happened to me yet. I don't know if Dave's got there or not, but
Jamie's so cool, they know he doesn't have a temp.
yeah. I always run hot. I don't know. So, all right, go, Rob.
Yeah, so Nick, just a point of clarification. So right now, with what we've already put in place, Raider Elite is all set to go July 6th, but currently students and the rest of the community, for that matter, can't use the fitness center.
Okay. They currently can't use the fitness center as it sits right now. Come July 6th, the expectation is, based on summer school and everything else, that yes, Raider Elite would be utilizing the fitness center if they needed it as part of their program, similar to any other indoor facility that our kids would need as it relates to summer school.
So right now, students outside of Raider Elite cannot use the fitness center as of July 6th, nor the community.
Correct. So as of right now, outside of school use, nobody can use indoor facilities outside of school use until you guys say it's okay, and on what date.
That would be true July 6th as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
So that moratorium stays in effect until you guys say, okay, outside groups can use the facilities, and what date would you like them to use it on?
Mr. President, I guess just to start, I guess I'd like to make a motion to allow the fitness center to be available to students outside of Raider Elite starting July 6th.
Okay, that's it? You don't want to open up the pool or the gyms or any of the other facilities?
I'm happy to have friendly amendments as others think it appropriate.
Okay. I'm waiting. Yes, Carrie.
I would add the amendment to open the pool for student use starting July 6th, gyms for practices July 6th, and potentially revisiting the community use of the fitness center depending on any spikes that we might see in the ensuing weeks with certainly all the community activity that's taken place in the last few weeks. There's been an increased number of gatherings, so I think would be prudent to be open to addressing that again.
Okay, I'm sorry. So your friendly amendment is to just add the gyms, practices, and the pool. Can we leave, is there a reason to add the stuff about not deciding for the community, or we just say that this is going to be open for students as of that date?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, so
I'm sorry, I thought his amendment was students and community.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Bruce.
Well, friendly amendment, I just want to make sure it is students and community, right? Or, because a club, for instance, at the pool, whom uses it most, aren't all students. So I just want to make sure that it's not stating just students, that it's for, club, community, and students, or something to that effect.
Now, when you say it, are you talking about the fitness center? Because Rob was trying to distinguish those out. So it probably is best to handle this in two motions. Talking about two different groups. Carrie's wants to open it up to the community, the pool, and the gyms to students and non-students as of July 6th. And I think that's what you're saying too, Bruce. But
if that's how it's stated, then yes, I'm okay. I heard the way that she had stated it was for students. So I just wanted to make sure that the friendly amendment included community as well.
And I apologize, it should have.
Okay, so just clarity, we're opening up indoor facilities for student and community use starting July 6th, with the exception of the fitness center for community use, in which case you guys will revisit between now and or you'll revisit at the next meeting. So basically, we're opening up our facilities for student and community use, with the exception of the fitness center. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I think that's what I'm hearing, but I just want to make sure Bruce and Carrie are on board with that then? Is that right, what you agreed? Is
Yes.
that your friendly amendment? And then Rob, you're good with that?
I accept.
All right. And so I'm going to take
Bob
got a
has
question.
Well, my question is that the fitness center would be available to students who are not in sports or practice or rate or elite. They would have those hours that would normally be on gym or the fitness center open for their use too, correct?
Yeah, that's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
All right. But I wasn't done finished. I mean, that's fine for a question, but we've got a motion and a second now, and it was stated by Dr. Ouellette. Is there any further questions or comments about?
I don't mean to complicate this, but one of the groups that we do get a lot over the summer are college students. So we're just currently enrolled K-12. I mean, I know we're going to get asked the question.
Well, they're part of the community, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the community is not allowed in the fitness center.
Right.
Oh, I
That
see.
would include college students, right? Because they're a community. They're not K through 12 students. So no college students in the fitness center.
Okay.
That's what the motion is.
Okay.
Yeah, can I get the friendly amended motion restated? Where did we land? Sorry.
So it would be opening our indoor facilities to student and community use starting July 6th, with the exception of the fitness center only being for student use, not community use.
And so remind me, other than the pool, what indoor facilities are we talking about? Where
This would
else?
be probably our gyms, our gym spaces, or potentially auditorium space. These would be basically all of our anything that people rent inside our buildings.
And these would be limited in number of people depending on what DPI says or the state says? Like in the gym? We couldn't pack 150 people in the gym on July 6th.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sticky wicket in this whole thing.
Well, that's, yeah, I'm here. I mean, on one hand, we're saying we can't have an in-person graduation because we don't want to put that many people into a space, but then we're going to open up that space for community rental with possibly out regulating. I mean, that's that's what's confusing me.
That's, and what I would tell you is we are anticipating getting guidance on some of the stuff from DPI any day now. I mean, right now it would be for groups smaller than 10.
Nick, is there some guidance that we should include in the motion, CDC or otherwise, so that we're aligned, or not so much?
I guess what I would tell you is your motion would be I don't know, the best guidance we have right now is not groups larger than 10 when it's not school use. When it's school use, then that kind of, we go bigger than that, but it's not like we're going to bring in 150 kids into the gym. I mean, I think our summer school classes are kind of capped at like 12. So, I mean, we're still trying to keep things small. So, I guess what you could say is based on what St. Croix County Public Health is comfortable with, because that seems to change on just about a daily basis.
Could, Mr. President?
Yes, Jerry.
Could we add the amendment that it's at the discretion of the administration interpreting safe guidelines and social distancing?
Rob, are you fine with that amendment?
Yes, I think that's I think that's well said on Carrie's part.
Yep. And so it's given the discretion to the administration to go with the best guidelines.
Agreed.
All right.
So
any other questions?
Yep, I do. So when we say groups no larger than 10, I mean, so like Mako is going to rent the pool, but only have 10 kids there at a time?
I don't think we're saying
per lane, right, Bruce?
No, because technically you've got 8 lanes, and if you have 2 kids in a lane, you could have 16 kids.
But so
I think
yeah, I mean, that's where we're going to need to look at the guidance, and then Mako put some guidance up on USA Swimming, and different facilities are going to give us different caps. I mean, it's kind of like you might have 10 kids in Holton's gym, and you might have 30 kids in the East gym at the high school because they're just bigger spaces. So we may be comfortable with 24 kids in the pool, 3 to a lane, but only 10 kids in Hudson Prairie's gym.
Mr. President,
we're going to have to look at it case by case.
Yes.
So Carrie's friendly amendment was, allowing administration to follow guidelines. So if it's 10 now and it turns out to be something later, it's up to administration to keep us safe based on guidelines. So I don't think it's necessarily 10. It could be 10, but we'll follow those guidelines later.
Right.
And I would even maybe add the point, not to follow the guidelines, but to safely interpret those guidelines.
Yes, I think that's a great point, Carrie.
Exactly.
So Carrie, as the clerk, are you writing all this down?
No, but I've got full confidence in Tim Minor.
Being recorded, so we've got it. We got that. Is there any further discussion for or against the motion that's been friendly amended multiple times, but I think it's pretty.
It's got to be a record.
Yes. Sue?
I'm just gonna, Mr. President, I'm just gonna say I'm still kind of nervous because there's too many whatevers here for me. So I'm going to vote nay, but I know that it's going to pass and everything, but I'm just going to do that in my comfort zone.
And thank you for expressing that. That's understandable. That's what discussion's all about. But, all right, is there any further questions, comments about this?
One other question. I know when we talked about opening the outdoor spaces, I think what we heard is, we'll communicate what we expect, but we're not going to be enforcing. We're not going to be policing. Is it safe to assume there would be a different approach to use of indoor spaces, and that if groups weren't following guidelines, that we would be doing something about it and they wouldn't be allowed? I mean, they would be, yeah.
It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier for us to enforce the indoor guidelines, just from a standpoint of we have people here. The outdoor ones, when we say hard to enforce, it's like if you just have a group of 30 people show up at the practice fields on a Saturday, we wouldn't necessarily be able to enforce that. Whereas as we rent the facilities out, we'll be able to, because we control who gets to use them because they're inside, we'll be able to have a better level of control.
Well, I'm pretty comfortable with the motion because number one, the priority is the students, which I like, but also trying to open something up to the community. The one that I do have a little concern over would be that fitness center area, just because we're concentrating more people in a smaller area. And I think we need probably some time, a minimum of a month probably, or 3 weeks at least, to come up with some kind of guidelines how that would be. I'd like to see how, if we're using the YMCA as a guide, I mean, right now I would say they're running at most 20% capacity, you know, from what we're used to when they open in the morning. And, you know, they're doing various things, but I think they're on a learning curve as well. So is there other comments or questions? I think I can see all board members on this one screen. Now, given that, I'm going to call the question then. All those in favor
Jamie,
of the motion?
Jamie,
Yes.
Jamie, you need a second. You have yet to have a second for this motion.
Second.
I thought
Second.
we said Carrie seconded the motion a while ago when she did her second friendly amendment.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's correct.
Yep. Right. So motion by Rob, second by Carrie, with the two friendly amendments. One is opening up everything to students and the community with the exception of the fitness center as of July 6th, and that this will be pursuant to guidelines that will be interpreted and enforced to the administration's best ability for whatever the current guidance is at the time, because it's such a fluid thing with the public health department. Is there anything I'm missing in restating that motion in the second?
No.
Okay. Then all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it, and the motion passes. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, I'll give the motion to Bruce and a second to Rob. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Those opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone, for your report.
Good night.
Good night.